Hey guys, another one-take review, and today I wanted to talk about the Father John Misty album, Fear Fun. Fear Fun was an interesting debut for the Father John Misty name because while Josh Tillman had been a member of the Fleet Foxes before and also released a number of albums under his own actual name, this was the first under Father John Misty, and it did mark a massive change for not only Josh Tillman as a musician, but also the singer-songwriter genre in general. The first thing that's bound to come up when discussing anything even remotely related to Father John Misty is lyricism, and interestingly, Fear Fun really lacks that distinct edge that ended up defining later albums like I Love You Honey Bear. His debut with the Father John Misty name kind of takes on more of a storyteller aspect, more similar to his previous band Fleet Foxes than what would go on to become the very iconic Father John Misty writing style. And while you could say it's a knockoff of Fleet Foxes, which, I mean, it kind of is, but still, I think it's well put together, and I think that it's at least interesting to hear a slightly different side of the Father John Misty persona. Plus, if you really want to bring up that whole this is a Fleet Foxes ripoff thing, I could give you an entire month to list off every indie folk band that's ripped off the Fleet Foxes within the past 10 years, and you would still not even have a quarter of the list complete. So, I mean, it's not like this is an uncommon thing where it's like, whoa, ripping off Fleet Foxes, that's not something indie folk musicians ever do, you know? So, I'm fine with it. I think it's well put together, and I think it's well done. However, the main issue with this less standout songwriting is just the fact that a lot of the charm of the persona is lost, as well as a lot of the dry humor that would go on to define later albums, especially I Love You Honey Bear and God's Favorite Customer. Songs like Misty's Nightmares 1 and 2 kind of give a taste of what's to come as far as Tillman's progression as Father John Misty goes, but they don't really fully develop the unique songwriting style that would be to come in just a few years. Instead, this actually feels like a totally different individual's work, or maybe something a little more leaning towards the Jay Tillman era of his music rather than the Father John Misty era. And even songs like Well You Can Do It Without Me, they just truly do not feel like Father John Misty songs. They completely lack the sort of cynical grandiosity that would bag him a couple of modern classics within the coming years. The instrumentals throughout Fear Fun are maybe a little bit weaker than one would expect as well. The more full moments don't feel as lush, and the more bare moments don't feel as icy cold as future releases would. I mean, I'm not saying that he has to get as absolutely just devastating as something like Pure Comedy. That's not to be expected this early under this style and this name, but still, it's just noteworthy to mention that, this doesn't quite capture nearly as close of, or nearly as major of a sound, I guess, as releases in not too far of a future would capture. The more garage rock feel of songs like Hollywood Forever Cemetery Sings and This Is Sally Hatchet is really interesting to hear, actually, and I kind of wish the rest of the album carried that throughout its entire track list. It would have made a interesting entry in the Father John Misty catalog, even if it wouldn't have been totally unique, and maybe it wouldn't have been the most standout record, but it would have been different. However, due to the fact that it kind of just feels like an undercooked version of what he'd be doing later on, Fear Fun just kind of feels like an unrefined version of the Father John Misty sound, which is a shame because it had potential to at least be a solid and different record as far as the persona goes. Overall, Fear Fun is actually a good album if you don't compare it to future releases. But there's no songs here like Holy Shit or Hang Out at the Gallows that are really amazing and really just mind-blowing upon first listen. There's a couple of great songs, and there's a handful of very good songs, and a couple of not very good songs. If this came from any other singer-songwriter type, I'd probably be more impressed than I actually am. It's just the connection of the Father John Misty name that makes me a little disappointed for a variety of reasons, but even still, in its unpolished form, all of its unpolished glory, Fear Fun is still an enjoyable listen, and I think that it's a decent start to the Father John Misty discography, which is why I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5, even with its shortcomings in terms of lyricism, instrumentation, and even personality at times. It's still a very fun, enjoyable listen. Just don't go in expecting, I Love You Honey Bear, or, Pure Comedy, or even God's Favorite Customer. It's a good record nonetheless, though, and with that being said, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. That's the end of this review, and I will see you guys in the next one.